morning, everyone. I'm Yajim from Minnesota, and this is a collaboration work with GLAAD. And so let's start. If I can figure out this computer right. Okay. So, well, this picture probably confused most of the men in the room with the long-time puzzle that why women need so many handbags, right? And including my husband. So it's actually reported that women in America, they purchase about 3 new handbags every year. And it's kind of shocking that because handbag really is just for carry stuff, right? Some of the handbags cost thousands of dollars. So when we see a girl proudly carrying around her Prada handbag, we refer such behavior as conspicuous consumption, right? So it's this tendency to purchase and exhibit expensive goods. And of course, we can do conspicuous consumption not just through handbags, right? There's cars and watches, and actually the luxury goods sales reached over 500 billion just last year. So this attracts consumer researchers' interest, right? Why do consumers spend so much money on such goods? So one of the reasons is that, well, one of the stream of research suggests that, well, conspicuous consumption luxury goods might provide consumers some intrinsic interest, right? They make people feel better about themselves. They have more firm self-esteem and have more stable self-identity. Another rich stream of research talks about, there's something going on with the social environment. Conspicuous product and luxury product are communicating some information. So luxury products has been showing that, to signal status and prestige, and also sometimes these signals can direct to a very specific group. Well, we're interested in if conspicuous consumption and luxury products play a role in the romantic relationship context. And actually, very few work look at the link, except only one line of work. Let's look at men's conspicuous consumption and male attraction motive. Okay, so what they did in a serious experiment, they find that if we show men a beautiful woman picture, or have them imagine that they're on the date with a beautiful woman, what happens is the desire for luxury product really increase, right? They desire for more status product, they want a Porsche car. So basically, that's what men's like. It's like a peacock, right? When there's mating season, the giant symmetrical tail start to attract a mate. However, across all the studies, there's no effect for women. So that have women look at a really handsome picture of a man, or have them thinking about going on the date with another guy, really didn't trigger women's conspicuous consumption desire. So this is really trigger us to wonder, what's going on with women whose luxury product actually count for more than half of the oversales of luxury product. So could there be something going on with women that are perhaps different from men? What would be the conspicuous consumption play a role for women in a romantic relationship context? So when we're thinking about a relationship, let's take a step back and thinking about, well, there's of course the attractive mate part, right? But for those who of us have been into a relationship before, we know that there is much more work after you attract a mate to retain them, to maintain the relationship. So actually, mate retention is considered as a fundamental human evolutionary motive. So when we're thinking about mate retention, of course, we try to show our love to partners, we go to the in-laws dinner, trying to maintain the relationship. However, there's something going on in the environment that we need to look out. It's the threat, right? There may be other people that also set eyes on your loved ones. So it's really also mate retention, including as part of managing the threat of your romantic competitors. And actually, across human history, mate guarding is especially important for women. And unfortunately, mate poaching behavior is actually pretty pervasive even nowadays. However, there's something about mate poachers, okay? They're not just going out to poach everyone. So studies find that women are less likely to approach a guy who seems to be more devoted and committed to his partner. Therefore, it kind of makes sense, when women are using tactics to guard their mate, of course they can slap her in the face, but maybe sometimes it's a more subtle strategies. So if this is true, it kind of makes sense for women to subtly send out the information to other women that, look, my man is really devoted to me, so you better back off. So an effective tactics from the past literature has shown that singling your man's devotion is a really effective strategy. So here is where some wondering, okay, if that's true, could luxury product and conspicuous consumption have this kind of signal value? So we propose that in our research. Women's luxury product is really a signal to other women, and we want to test this in a series of experiments. So first, we want to establish this link of, luxury product and the devotion from the man. So if it's true that women can actually use this to guard their mate, there must be other women must have this belief and perception about if we see a woman is wearing luxury product, her man is probably more devoted to her. So there should be a link in this perception. Then we want to show that, well, if the link is established, under certain circumstances, women's luxury consumption desire should be triggered, and that circumstances should be when there's a threat, right? So when there's a threat to your romantic relationship, we should observe that women's desire for conspicuous product increase. And if this is true, of course, for most of the cases, the threat would be coming from another woman. So therefore, the audience for the conspicuous consumption should be other women, but not men. And finally, we want to look at if actually such signal is effective at guarding your mate. Okay, so we test this through several studies, and we will go through that. So first, we're going to see if there's a perception link between women's luxury positions and perceived man devoted from her partner. So we just have a very simple two between subject design, and women are either read one of the two scenarios. So to read that, imagine you are at a gala party where you see another woman and she's there with her man, okay? And as you look at what she's wearing, you can tell that her outfit and accessories are all designers, and another group just read on non-designer brands, okay? So after they read the scenario, they answer the question about, how do you think the man? How committed do you think the man is to the woman? And how much do you think the man loves the woman? So what do we find is that women participants think the man is more devoted to the woman who had the designer product, and the difference is significant. So this kind of gives us some confidence about there is a kind of a labeling and a link between women's luxury product and some sort of devotion and commitment from the man. So next, we're going to see if under circumstances, if there's a threat in the environment, would that trigger women's conspicuous consumption? So we had a woman come to the lab, and then we have three between subjects design. We have mate guarding, mate attraction, and control. So the manipulation is really you have a participant go through an imaginary scenario, and they're asked to stop at several times to write about how they feel. And this has been used before as to active certain motive. So I'll walk through with you what they see. So part one. Women sit there and they start to rate. Imagine that you're in a relationship. You and your date are at a party. There are a lot of people around and everybody is having a good time. After you get something to drink, you find out that there's a couple of women talking and laughing with your date. So at this point, they were stopped and asked about how they imagine in the scenario and how do they feel. Next, they read. Soon, you discover that there's one woman who's flirting with your date. She puts her hand on your date's shoulder and leans forward. They both seem to be enjoying the conversation. It's getting a little annoying. So they are stopped again and start to write, okay? And it's not over yet. Part three. As they keep talking, the woman starts to kiss your date, okay? So as you can see, there's outrageous in the lab room, the tension in the lab room. Women all start to write about how do they feel about the situation, right? After the imagination, later on we have them to do an unrelated study. So we asked them to design the product for themselves. So what they did is like, we're interested in some personalization of some lecture product, so please design the following product for yourself, okay? So what they get is a blank handbag. There's no logo, nothing on it. And then we will provide them for 3 luxury brands. And we're asking to draw the logo on the bag. So they can draw anywhere, and they can draw as larger or as smaller as they want, okay? So here, the size of the logo is our dependent measure here. So from the previous literature shows that the conspicuousness and the size of the logo is an indicator of the desire for conspicuous and luxury product. And we did this through several products, including handbag, shoes, car, and t-shirt. So here's what we find. Oh, this is just an example of logos drawn by participant, and this is a scan. As we can see, the woman on the right draw like a huge logo in the middle of the bag, right? And the one on the left is a really subtle, small logo. So here's what we found. Crossover handbag, t-shirt, car, and shoe. Constantly, we find that women in the maid guarding motive draw significantly larger, actually as twice as large the logo compared with 2 other control conditions. And if you notice that the blue bar and the light yellow bar actually replicate the previous finding that maid attraction motive didn't really change women's desire for conspicuous product. It is really the maid guarding motive really increased women's conspicuous consumption desire. So far we've shown that there's a perception link between women's luxury positions and men's devotion, and under certain circumstances, it's triggered, right, when there's a threat. So next we want to show the conspicuous consumption's audience for women is other women, but not the men. So we had a similar design as study 2, but twist a little bit by the end of the scenario. So do you guys remember the last part of the scenario is the women start to kissing your date, right? So for the female audience scenario, we ended the scenario with you now find yourself next to the other woman. So it's really this face-to-face intrasexual competition here. For the male audience, we ended with the scenario as you now find yourself next to your date, okay? And then we have several other control conditions. Here again, we replicated what we find before. So the red bar is the mate guarding condition with female audience. So only this condition triggered women's conspicuous consumption desire, and they are significantly greater than the control and the male audience condition. So far we've been established the signal system as there's a perception, the audience is woman, and under circumstances it's triggered by the threats and the environment. So last, we want to show that if such signal is effective, right, do other women perceive this and would indicate they are less likely to pursue your guy, right? So that's our 4th study. So we have a woman rating the scenario similar as what we did in the study 1. So the woman in the scenario either wear a designer or non-designer outfit. And they were asked, similar as study 1, to indicate how much do they think that the man loves the woman, committed to the woman, and cares for her. So this is what we find. For the woman in the scenario who wears luxury product, other women perceived her partner is more devoted to her, okay? And then we ask them, well, imagine you're single and you find yourself attracted to this guy. How likely would you be go after him, okay? And of course, there's an important moderator here is that not every woman would go after a guy, so we measured women's mating strategies. So that means for some women, they are more likely to have an affair with a taken partner, and other women probably would never even consider that. So that's an important moderator here. We measured as women's mating strategy. So this is what we find. Well, for the short mating strategy woman, meaning that women who would really never consider to have such things, there's really no effect for their intention to pursue the guy because you can see it's already really low, right? However, for the women who are,